Hey, welcome to Your Best Podcast, your place for conversations, information, and expert guests to help you feel your next best. Today, we have Nancy Shapiro, and she is really going to break down Akashic Records. We're all going to learn. Maybe y'all won't. I will. I can't wait to speak to you. Nancy, this is awesome because you're going to educate us all. I know that you lead people through practices, but I want to make sure that I announce your title correctly.
I call myself a practitioner. I am a Reiki practitioner. I'm an Akashic Records reader, and I'm a medium, a spiritual medium.
Yeah, see, so I knew it. I was like, one word is not going to really describe it.
Yeah, I know. I've been looking for the one word, and they all don't fit exactly right.
Tired of paying for ads that disappear? At Teemaree Media, your message lives on. Sponsor a segment in our uplifting shows or podcasts and enjoy lasting, thoughtful visibility, not just another scroll. Visit teemareemedia.com to get started. Woohoo! Well, awesome. Welcome. It's so nice to have you here today because this was really intriguing to kind of super basically learn about. So I guess we'll start off with really like the main thing. What are Akashic Records? What is that?
I know. I had a hard time pronouncing it at first too. I was like, Akashi, because I had never, it wasn't until I was 50 years old that I happened to hear about them. I was on a walk and I still couldn't pronounce it right for probably a few months until I had a session with somebody else who was more experienced with it. But honestly, it didn't matter if I could pronounce it or not because it just was such so intriguing and so helpful once I learned what it was all about. And it almost sounded too good to be true. Mm-hmm. The Akashic Records is a way to connect to the spiritual realm that has all of your life experiences in your records, in your book. And everybody has their own book. It's obviously not a physical, tangible item you can touch and open, but some people do visualize it and see it. And you connect with your guides, the librarians there, the masters, the beings of light, all of them. And you can read your book of life, which, as I said, has all of your experiences, your past lives, your actions, thoughts, everything is in this book. And you can use it not really to tell your future, but to understand yourself better and get life guidance for what you need at this moment.
Wow, that's fascinating.
In a nutshell.
That's fascinating. Okay, so I don't know if you have ever heard of a television show called Supernatural. This show was this epic tale, and the reason why I'm telling you about it is because it deals with all things supernatural. It's a story of these brothers that fight and maintain and deal in the supernatural world beyond ghosts. Okay. And so we are deep in. I love this show. And we're deep in, and they get to this point where there is this library.
Okay.
And it represents every human. Every human has a book. And so as soon as it's describing it in this way, I was like, oh, could they have gotten, inspiration or something? Because there's many themes in that series that has to do with like angels, demons, ghosts, vampire, like just all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Occult and otherwise. But yeah, so that's fascinating that you reference it in that way. Like you said, it's not a physical book, but it is this like book of records associated to each person. Now, please tell me a little bit more. Is this like, because we've heard of like astrology where things are like in the stars, so to speak, or we're hearing about what is like human design. We're hearing about gene keys. How do you access this information? Is this like a chart? Is it how?
How is right. Yeah, because when she mentioned it that day on the podcast and said I could do it myself, because all these years I've been going to palm readers and tarot card readers and trying, and I had read my own cards a little bit, but I didn't think I could do it myself. So she said it's just a prayer that you repeat 3 times. It's like, like Aladdin's lamp, you rub it and then you make 3 wishes. But no, you say this prayer once aloud, twice in your head, and then you connect. The door, the gateway is open. happened, and you are able to connect with them there. For me, at least, and again, I'm only going to speak about my experiences with it. It wasn't as though there was this like waterfall of information and it was like an awakening. It didn't happen like that. It's taken a lot of practice and connection and noticing the little signs that it's not me, that it's actually something else, someone, other beings that are giving me the information. And sometimes it's still where I'm like, is that me making it up? Because your ego does get in the way. But as I was telling a student yesterday, like when you are giving somebody else the information and they say, oh my gosh, how did you know that? I can take that totally fits with my life. Then you really get the validation that you aren't connecting, and just telling yourself what you want to hear.
So what is the where does the Akashic Records practice, faith, tradition, where does this come from? What is it associated with?
So Akasha is a Sanskrit term. It's been the Akashic Records, connecting to the records, I think has been here hundreds of years. And I think it's had maybe different names over the years. Maybe you've heard of the Book of Life. Some people reference it like that. And there's been, even in the Bible or different, whatever you prescribe to, there's been mention of this book or this realm that you connect with. And so when I connected with the teachers that had, they didn't introduce it to me, but I needed that validation that it wasn't just me. So I went to this class, and they said their mother and aunts had known about the Akashic Records like from when they were young, and learned it from their family. So it's been in a tradition, and used in different places and around the world for a long, long time. I am not 100% sure how long, but pretty long, in some form or another.
So
Yeah.
take us a little bit into your personal experience. You had mentioned a little bit that you had learned about it. So what was happening in your life at the time? How did you learn about this? And what is it that really drew you in? What were you trying to accomplish, learn, or achieve? Walk us a little bit through your experience here, your beginning.
Yeah. So I was 50, as I said, and it was in 2020 when we all remember that year and everything was happening. I am a teacher, mom, teacher, and more recently a substitute teacher for the last 15 years or so. So we weren't being used very much at that time. And I was going on these walks, and I just felt like I was needing comfort, reassurance. Yeah, I was into, predictions with my tarot, like trying to find out what would happen, the card reading, but it wasn't, like I said, it wasn't this huge awakening. I did Reiki at first to start because I needed something to calm me down. And so I was going online and finding people to learn and do that with. And then the Akashic Records came out, and it was just another way to see if I could connect with spirit and, learn about my life. My daughter was her senior year of college. She was going off to school the next year. My son was already at school, so we were becoming empty nesters. And I think, in those transition points in your life, despite what's going on around the world, you just are sometimes looking for more insight or understanding. And so when I was going into the records, it was, curiosity. Can I really connect with spirit in this way? And just finding out more about myself. I mean, there's so many questions you can ask. And in the beginning, when I was practicing and diving deep, because it is all about persistence and patience, when it doesn't come right away like that, I was asking, the heavy questions all the way to the lighter questions. What's my spirit animal or something like that. And so it was really interesting and curious that these were ringing true for me. I felt it. And when I was starting to practice with other people, that they were getting validation and comfort also from what I was receiving.
I see.
Yeah.
So you're having this experience where you're seeking more insight, some validation on some things. You're just wanting a little bit more information. And so you discover this, and you
Mm-hmm.
start to try it. You start to see if you actually gain insights and answers. As that starts to happen, what are some of the things that maybe made you feel like, wow, this is, first of all, because there's twofold, right? There's the experience of you're having this experience so personally you're getting some sort of satisfaction or result, but then you've
Right.
taken it to practice this. So what was happening? What were some of the things you feel comfortable sharing about that made you kind of say, wow, this is something for me? And then even further to say, wow, I want to help others with this or work with others with this.
Yeah. Um, the different things I was feeling were, okay, you have a song pop up in your head, everybody does, but these songs were making sense for me, and then, like I said, when I was reading for other people, they rang true for them, and so, it was a perfect song that would come up in my head that I would hear, or when I was reading for someone, more recently, I can, sometimes I don't remember all my readings, but a song came up that really hit home for her. It was a song I hadn't heard in years. It was from the 70s and it had somebody's name in it. I said, I don't know why I'm saying this name, but I have to say it right away in this group reading. And she's like, oh my gosh, my daughter's missing, and that is her name. That is, how did you know to say that? And so then her guides came through with reassurance, comfort, like she's going to be okay. And here's what you need to do now at this time to, for whatever reason, the things like that I was getting. I think it was with working with other people that I knew the most. I remember doing a trade and I was getting a name of a little character and I could see it in my mind's eye. And I was saying, this is describing it. And she was on the other side of the world and she said, oh my gosh, Nancy, you're not going to believe this. And she picked up, I think she picked it up, this little charm character thing, small, that was like her lucky charm that she had carried since she was a kid. And she had a name for it that was the same name I was saying. So it's things like that. So sometimes I get visuals. A lot of times I was getting songs in the beginning, and sometimes it was just a word or a feeling. It was coming through in that way, and it just was, um, again, the class I was teaching, the woman said, look, how do I know it's me? And I said, well, is it, you don't always, but is it something, guidance that feels hopeful and positive? Then take it and keep trying and going again the next time and see how it feels for you. If it's negative or dark, I don't believe it's associated with the records. The records give you what you need to know at that time, and what's going to be to your highest good, to your benefit. I remember one time, sometimes you get answers from, I don't want to go into what happened with her yesterday, but it was something silly. But when I went into the records once, I was having a lot of, it was a crisis. It was felt like a crisis. It was dealing with a parent who was aging, and it wasn't happening very cleanly, nicely, and what was going on and how we were going through things. And I was like, this is the worst time. I'm not going to be okay. It's really awful. And they were like, Nancy, what if everything goes okay? What if this turns out right? And I honestly was like, there's just no way this is going to end and it's going to be bad. And they kept coming through over and over. And I knew it wasn't me because it wasn't what I thought was going to happen. And a year later now, my sister and I were both talking and said, yeah, you know what? This happened exactly the way it probably was supposed to. It turned out okay. And at that time, all I needed to know was it could go well. It could go right. But they didn't predict that it would. They just kept sprinkling that in my readings when I would go in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's something that needs to be practiced regularly or when the feeling arises, or how does that work?
There's different thoughts on this. I am somebody who goes in every day.
Mhm.
I connect with my guides when I get in the car and I turn my phone on to record and I just talk with them. Some people say, well, isn't that just connecting with your inner guidance or spirit in general? And for me, I don't know. I say the prayer and I feel like I'm more connected than in my everyday going around getting thoughts in my head about what to do or this and that. And so I do go in every day. I consistently practice. There was a group of us that got together, and we practice every 2 weeks, pretty religiously. Not sometimes there's things that happen, of course, but just practicing with other people and what they're getting has been really helpful. And yeah, a lot of us do go in every day. Some people choose to just go in when they have big issues and things that they want to find answers to. It just depends.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. So, how does getting a reading work and so you mentioned you read tarot as well.
Yeah.
So so I think that most people are pretty familiar with a tarot experience that's been televised many times and
Right.
like, you know, it's written about in different shows and movies and stuff. So, you know, that's a person would
Mhm.
come and a tarot reader has a deck of tarot cards and there's some conversation and a pulling of cards and then like a deciphering of what those cards are. Is that somewhat accurate of how that kind of goes?
Yeah. Yeah, I would say so. Mhm.
Okay, so if someone is coming for an Akashic records reading, what is that? What does that look like?
So I can't speak for everybody. But the one main difference is you don't need any cards. You don't need anything with that. You just need yourself. And of course, setting a candle, lighting a candle first, putting out crystals, like all of those are helpful rituals, but they're not necessary. And when somebody comes to a reading with me, it's just we say, like I do a brief meditation for about a minute just to settle us from where we've been, if we were on, carpooling or whatever. And then I just do a quiet meditation, just breathing for a minute or so. And then I open the Akashic Records for them, or for myself, it was just for me. And I say the prayer 3 times. That's just how I learned it. And that feels like a calming ritual for me
Mhm.
to set the intention. And then we just ask questions. And it's a Q&A asking these more, not just yes and not usually yes and no questions, because it's like talking to a teenager. You won't get much. So you ask these why questions, or how do I, or what do I do from here? And then it's just a back and forth conversation. In the beginning, I was just writing my answers that I was thinking I was getting. And then now I channel the information, which means I speak it. And I think when I just pulled my tarot cards yesterday. I don't think that you have to try to do one or the other, but I think a lot of these, go in tandem. And when I pull tarot, I am maybe looking for what's coming in the near future. How will this week be for me? Or what do I need to know around this situation? And so there's some overlap with it, like what you need to know about a situation or what might I do next, but it's not a fortune teller prediction tool. It's just learning what you know now. And so how do people do it? I mean, people do it through art even. We did ask a question and then did a beautiful collage. Mine, I don't know how beautiful it was, but I felt that it showed answers. Whereas we formed a little group to do that as well. And, there's a woman who was a beautiful watercolor artist, and her answers came through in the colors she chose and the way she felt moved to draw. So it's just, the answers come through in different ways. And you just have to tune in for what's right for you. And I think it also evolves and changes how you grow, from writing as it did for me into speaking it. It just can change over time, and just being open and trusting, and not putting that pressure to get it right, or is this me, just kind of going with the flow has
Mhm.
been most helpful. But with tarot, I think with mediumship, I found out I was a medium by doing the Akashic Records, because in this gang, I was channeling this message, and the girl, one of my friends said, you sound just like my grandmother, the way you're talking and the words that you're using, those are what she would say. And I found from there that, yeah, you can, don't have to know you're a medium from childhood. And I did learn that I was doing that already and developed that from there. So it helps when I open the Akashic Records, but do it before I do a mediumship session, before I go into a presentation or the classroom sometimes. Not always a classroom, but maybe a conversation. There's just different ways that you can use the Akashic Records as a tool to enhance what you're already doing spiritually, I
Mhm.
believe, or in everyday life.
So What exactly is a medium versus a psychic? Or what is a medium in its own right?
So a medium is someone who connects with someone in spirit, a loved one or an animal even. You're looking for evidence that that loved one, that soul is still nearby. You know, when I would go to try and connect with my mom, I was looking that somebody could pick up on her personality or her hair color or an object that I knew that we had in the house or a photograph or something to give evidence that it was her. When I'm going into the Akashic Records, it's more about not necessarily the who. You know, I'm not, maybe my mom is coming through sometimes, maybe it's a guardian angel coming through, but I'm looking for the message to have something that answers my question that feels comforting. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So, have you always been open to these types of practices? Is it something that evolved over time? Um, what was your beginnings with that? So, I know for me personally,
Yeah.
um, I was raised, well, I was born Catholic technically, but not
Okay.
really because we did not practice any Catholicism in our home. My parents were
Yeah.
not going to church. It was nothing like that. It's just the technical term of parents and grandparents. And then I was always seeking from a very young age. I would walk myself to different churches. I would learn about different faith traditions because I really had a desire to learn about God. Who is God? What
Mhm.
is truly godly? So my perspective was that. Along the journey, there's been a lot of different discovery with things that, depending on the person's faith tradition, they may or may not be
Mhm.
scared, nervous, reluctant, etc. Um, what was it like for you? What was the belief or tradition generally in your family? And then as you started to discover this within yourself, did you have any feelings or thoughts about it, positive, negative, indifferent? How did that play in? And then since you've been in the Akashic Records and discovering more about yourself, did you find through lines there that
Yeah.
matched the experience or emotions you were having, on your
Yeah.
trajectory?
That's a lot.
Yeah,
Let me see if I
yeah.
can touch on everything. So I've always been spiritual. My grandfather actually used to read playing cards. He'd pull out the little card table and, tell my fortune. It was probably around, I remember it mostly around seventh grade, eighth grade time period. And I just thought it was amazing because it wasn't obviously relationships and career at that point. It was about, like finding money. You're going to find money. And I just always wanted to see whatever number, I think it was number 7, I'm not sure, but I thought that was so great. But he learned to do it from his parents, his mother, I think, and his grandmother. And my grandmother, his wife of probably 75 years, to the end, did not like that at all. And she was not happy with it. But I think maybe that's where I got the little bug in me. My sister, when she went to college, had left these little books that I still have about how to read playing cards. And so I would do that. I would like, and by that time I was nearing middle school, high school, and Du Bois, like, is this going to be my life, whatever. And so I then was going to palm readers with friends. We'd go down, I'm near Washington, D.C., we'd go down to Georgetown, get our palms read, and it just was something for fun. But my mom was diagnosed with cancer as a teen, as I was a teen. And so I was going to these palm readers to see if she'd be okay. So it kind of took a turn from fun hobby to something more, really wanting answers. And my grandfather, I remember, did read her cards. He reshuffled because the answer wasn't great. And after that, my grandmother made him put the cards away because she didn't want that in the house. So there was always this, you know. So after my mom unfortunately didn't make it, she passed away. And so then I was going to mediums, and it wasn't like it is now where I think how great would that be? I'd be able to find a medium any old time. But back then it was more sporadic, and I didn't go all the time as I was raising my children and being a teacher. And so um, I guess I always had it like a curiosity pulling out the cards, but it wasn't constant. I wasn't consulting my cards all the time. And sometimes they were pretty accurate, and I didn't want I didn't want to deal with that freaked me out. And I remember even in 7th grade though, I remember putting my hands up in front of my best friend and be like, "You're going to do great on your test. You have Nancy's power." And was that the beginning of Reiki? I don't know, but she's like, "Do that for me, Nancy. I feel the energy when you do that." So it was just something for fun. I was as more recently, I would go to these paranormal experiences. We went to this fantastic place in West Virginia and we're locked in overnight and trying to see if we could run into ghosts. And so it just has always been like this hobby. And that's when even my cousins and I were at this camping trip in Berkeley Springs, and they're like, "What would your dream job be?" I'm like, "Well, I'm a mom. I always wanted to be a mom. I always wanted to be a teacher. Here I am. I've done that. I would love to be like a medium who could connect with people's loved ones. Like I wish I could connect with somebody and know they were connecting with my mom, and it was true. Like I was really getting it. And so who knew 10 years later, like I'd be doing this, that I would be connected. So it was just for fun. I didn't, I would read tea leaves or whatever, but it was just a hobby. And when I started doing this, 5 years ago and really tuning in, I kind of kept it quiet, to be honest. I was,
Sure.
I was telling my husband I was meditating, and I was, not saying I think I'm connecting with spirit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I should have felt safer and open, but he still is a little bit skeptical. And, I'm a skeptic too. I want some, like, give me the proof, let me see it. And so I've still even kept it quiet a little bit, and it's been easier going and doing it everywhere else, but closer to my home area. And I'm getting better with that, but it's just, in the beginning, maybe you think you're a little nuts.
Mm-hmm.
And, but honestly, like this morning, or, I got an email today, like you just get this message from people, like you've brought me so much comfort, and feeling better about my brother's death was the one this morning. And the reading today was this woman didn't know where she was going in her career, and the guidance was exactly what she needed and gave her this new idea that she's excited to run with. And how great is that? For me as a teacher, it's just a different way to help people. And you can tell it gets me so excited because it's just fascinating that I didn't have this, I didn't think I had this ability, more than 6 years ago. And now I'm doing it for other people. And it's just so rewarding. And if other people could learn that they could do it too, like how great to plant these seeds that maybe this person wants to try it for themselves. That would be really wonderful.
That's fascinating because I think, there's a lot of parallels there, no matter what the person's faith tradition is.
Mhm.
I think whenever we do dive in more and we do actually start to see that there's this relationship there, even for me, I can relate to that, because
Yeah,
I've asked God in prayer for things, and I've
right.
actual things, both material, like meaning needs I've had, or time, or answers. Like I need help
Yeah,
with this, or I don't understand, or whatever it is. And I have gotten actual responses. And I
really.
know that, that can sound, it doesn't matter what your faith tradition is. If I'm like, hey, God told me, people, it depends where
Yeah,
someone is at, right? And so I can
right.
totally relate to that of how it may be received. And then when we have these things we haven't heard of, what we haven't heard of all of the things, and I don't think any one person can. There's
Right,
so much out there. There's centuries of
right.
information and ways for us to navigate life and a deeper understanding of ourselves. So yeah, it's pretty amazing how we go through these various emotions as we are taking this walk of really realizing that we're not alone in this experience.
Yeah,
And it's pretty powerful. That's really cool. And I do think it's amazing that you are helping people because um, I've I enjoy being very open about all these modalities in terms of gaining an understanding and seeing. So I had asked you about mediumship because I wanted you to define it for folks. But I have seen various mediums like bring someone that's been suffering for years a sensation of peace, of being able to put something away finally. So yeah, I'm not here to discount anyone's journey or what they feel is good for them. I think it's just very fascinating. I know I, for one, had never heard of the Akashic Records. And so I'm like, what is this? Let's figure this out.
I know. Yeah. I know. I wish I had known about it a long time ago, but it's never too late.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot in there. It takes practice to connect, on your own, but if you have the passion and persistence.
Yeah.
And they meet you where you are. You've brought up religion and everything. It's not religious based, and they meet you where you are, with your belief system and your faith. So I haven't found anything negative at all. Knock on wood.
So, what is your best way to describe Akashic Records in one sentence?
The Akashic Records is a cosmic database storage system, and and out there that you can use to help you in your life. For more understanding, and this is the teacher to be like, oh my God, what a run-on sentence. But that contains all of your thoughts, actions, and experiences to help you learn and grow.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. This has been a fascinating conversation. Please tell us all where we can continue to connect with you further and find out more about your work.
So the best place is on my website, which is mysticenergywithnancy.com or mewithnancy.com. And there I offer one-on-one readings, both in person and virtually. And also I do gallery readings around, and I do offer Akashic Records classes where there's small groups where we have live one-on-one instruction and practice together so that you can learn to open your own Akashic Records and feel more empowered. But that's the best place to find me, as well as on Instagram, mewithnancy.com, and also on Facebook. I'm there as well.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for tuning in to this episode of Your Best Podcast. Be sure to like, subscribe, and even give us a review. And hey, don't forget, there are plenty of resources in the show notes for you. See you in the next episode. Woohoo!